Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped and welcome back to Anthony James Cars. Now, if you've been tuning into the channel recently, last week I drove the brand new 911 992 GT3. And that video, well, one, it was a great deal of fun to make and that car was a great deal of fun to drive. But very shortly after that video went live, Daniel from Anthony James rang me up and he said, Ped, if you want a 911 and if you want a GT3, I can help you out. And I said, look, I can't afford to buy a GT3. He went, don't worry, he said, I've got a plan. Come down, I've got a car for you that is within your budget. It's a 911 and I think you'll love it. So once this coffee's made, we'll wander through because I think I might find in there a 911 that is perfect for me. I reckon that's done. So follow me. This is much more in my price range. So this is a 911, but this is a 996 generation, and it's a Carrera 4S. Now, 996s, I've always been a bit Marmite for me. I've never been a big fan of the headlamps on a 996, but I think I could get over the headlights. So this car, I've got some facts and figures. 996 Carrera 4S. It is a manual, so you know how much I like the manual in the GT3. 315 horsepower. Now that amazes me. This car's only got just a little bit more horsepower than my mini John Cooper Works Clubman. It'll do 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, and it is currently up for sale for just under £35,000, £5 under £35,000 actually. And it's a stunning, stunning car, but I'm thinking, well, what if I want a little bit more performance, a little bit more? Well, just so happens that next to that car, I've got something that might just tick that box. This is a 996 generation 911 turbo. Again, similar headlights. Now, one of the things about having these cars next to each other is you can start to see the difference in the different model variations. Now, we're upping the budget a little bit. This is just shy of £48,000, 414 horsepower, and 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. But the phenomenal thing about this car is its first owner was the rally legend Richard Burns. How about buying yourself into a bit of rally history? I think that's phenomenal, actually. It makes this car incredibly attractive. It's got the turbo wheels. It's a manual, and I think as a car, very attractive. But what if you wanted a little bit more power than that? Well, just so happens, follow me, next to it, I think you'll get where we're going with this video. Next to it is a 996 generation 911 Turbo S. Stunning, stunning car. Again, a manual. Now, this car now has 450 horsepower. Now, the amazing thing for me is that GT3 I had last week was a GT3 and it had 510 horsepower. This is the Turbo S, 0 to 60, 4.1 seconds. This is now £5 under £70,000. Now, let me explain exactly what I'm doing here. The cars that we have here are all part of the same collection. They're all owned by the same person. They are all for sale. So if you wanted a little bit more go than a 911 Turbo S or maybe a more track-focused car, then we've got this. So this is the 996 generation equivalent of the car I had last week. This is a 996 GT3, a manual. It's in silver. It's got lovely split rim alloys, beautiful condition. I love the wing on the back of this. A few stats for you. I've got my little bit of paper here. So interestingly enough, this GT3, 381 horsepower. So you think how much difference that is compared to the latest generation of GT3 at 510 horsepower, 0 to 60, 4.4 seconds. It's a manual. It's got lovely bucket seats. And this car is £5 shy of 78,000 quid. So we've gone Carrera 4S, Turbo, Turbo S, GT3. Can we complete the set? Well, of course we can. What about the ultimate 996 911? What about the Widowmaker? Well, it just so happens that we've got one of those here as well. So this is a 996 GT2. Now, I'm sure many of you will know far more about 911s than I do, but effectively this is a turbo with two-wheel drive and a big wing on the back. They have quite a reputation. Just in terms of stats, so 462 horsepower all through the rear wheels. Again, this is a manual. How special is this? 5 Porsches, they're all manual gearboxes. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. We are upping the budget a little bit here because these cars are really quite sought after. This is £5 shy of £120,000. So when Daniel messaged me and said, look, come down and have a look, how rare an opportunity is it to have the complete set of 911, 996 generation cars. Carrera 4S, Turbo, Turbo S, GT3 and GT2. Stunning. Now the question is, which one of them am I going to take out for a drive? I've been offered the keys to any of them that I want. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, take out the GT2 Ped. Well, 2 reasons why I'm not. Number 1, it's quite cold and damp outside. And I'm actually not really wanting to take this car out in these conditions because they do have a bit of a reputation. And the second reason is I'm actually trying or planning a video with a good friend of mine who has one of these. It's race prepared, it's a very special car, and I really want to save the, if you like, scratching my GT2 itch until I get to drive that car. So what that means is I thought it'd be really interesting to take out the GT3, having just driven the 992 generation GT3 in manual. I thought it would be a really interesting video to compare a 996 with the current 992 GT3. So the next thing I need to do is get some cameras set up and we'll get this car dirty. And then the valeters here at Anthony James Cars are going to hate me. But how cool is that?
Okay, so as we leave the showroom, I just want to kind of take you along for the ride on this. The thing I love about getting in this car straight away is it's an old car now. It's a kind of, I guess, almost approaching modern classic. There's no sat-nav in here. There's even this, look. Remember these? This is a cigarette lighter. When's the last time you drove a car with one of them in it? So it is quite old school in here, the old switchgear. It's been a while since I've been in a Porsche of this vintage. These bucket seats, I'm not so keen on the look, but they're certainly very snug and fit really nicely. I'm just going to wait for the engine to warm up, give it plenty of time to get all the fluids and so on warm. But let's just talk about that collection, shall we? I mean, how special is it to have seen all of, not all of the 996s obviously, because you could have the Carrera and the Carrera S, but from 4S upwards, all in the same room at the same time. When Daniel emailed me, I was like, I'm there. I need to come and see these cars. I'm really, really keen to come and see them. And ultimately, if I had the time, if it was, you know, I could quite happily do a video on all of those cars and drive them all, but I don't have the time, sadly. I'm quite busy this week, so this is a bit of a gun and run special, a one-take wonder on the driving impressions. But yeah, very, very cool. And I'd love to know, put in the comments below, what would your choice be of those 5 cars? Because they range in, you know, in price range from, you know, a car in the kind of mid-30s up to 120,000 quid. So, you know, there's plenty of budget stretch there for you. Performance-wise, you know, the thing I find amazing about these cars, they're kind of going back into the early noughties. You know, these were like the pinnacle of sports cars. That Turbo S, 450 horsepower back then, that was a lot. Nowadays, you know, this car, yeah, hot hatch has the same amount of power. I just, not that long last year, drove the new RS3 with 400 horsepower in a hatchback. This is a GT3 and it's got less than that. So I do find it quite interesting how the cars have kind of evolved and come on. Initial impressions of the GT3, and the reason I picked this, as I said before, is I've only just recently driven the brand new GT3, and I found that car it was captivating. It was a stunning car, and I've been on Auto Trader and thought, how can I get into a GT3? What are the options in terms of price point? And the modern one, the 992, you can't get one of those a new build slot, and they're currently selling for about £100,000 above list. So realistically, unless you've already got an allocation, you aren't going to get one of those. So you think, okay, I'll go for an older generation one. Well, the 991, they're still pulling really good money, 120, 130,000 quid. I've looked. Yeah, okay, I'll go 997. Well, they're still pretty good money. So now you start coming back to 996. And now we're in that kind of 70, 80,000 quid mark. You think, okay. The downside of that is you have a much older car. But the upside is you start thinking, well, actually, it's almost like a modern classic. So let's get the car out on a bit of open road. The immediate impressions is that the suspension is pretty firm, but I'd expect it to be. It's got a very, very fruity exhaust on this car. I can't wait to be able to open it up a little bit. And it's certainly much better weather than the last time I was with the guys at Anthony James, because that was when it was torrential rain in the manual F-Type. It's got a lovely feeling to it, even on very light throttle in the 30-mile-an-hour limit. It really does have a nice feel. Just see what my temperatures are like. Oil pressure, oil temperature, they're all good. Temperatures are all good. So the classic analog cluster with the 5 dials, in that 992 video, obviously they're all now digital. You can get rid of the 2 on the outside, but interestingly, in this one, I can actually see all 5, which is good, because you can't do that in the 992. The 2 extreme ones on the left and the right are covered up by your hands. Okay. So, in this older generation, you don't sadly have. Does sound good, doesn't it? Sadly, you don't have the 9,000 RPM red line. This red line's at about 7,500 RPM. Straight away, I tell you now, the cabin isn't as noisy as the new one. But it feels very light. I don't know the light. I'm going to put a caption below of what the weight is, because I don't know it off the top of my head. It feels very light, but what I love about it is just the stripped back nature of the cabin. There's no dials on the steering wheel at all. Very analog. There's no sat nav. I've got like a kind of head unit for a stereo, and that's about it really. There are no creature comforts in here at all. But on a dual carriageway, it feels nice. The steering's accurate, but it's not nearly as sharp and as pointy as the new GT3. It's unfair of me. There's 20 years difference between this and the 992, so I can't really do a like-for-like comparison. Does sound good, this car. Yeah, you don't have any OPF filters in this bad boy. And now I'm on a bit more of a flowing bit of tarmac. It's got a really nice feel to the steering, a really nice feel to how you can position the car on the road. No auto blip function. Back to the days, I guess, where you're more in control of the car. There are less systems and things getting in the way. And I guess if you want that purity in a car, that's one of the benefits of going back into the older generations of cars, is that, the older you go, the further you go back, the less electronics and the less things to get in the way of just you being in control of the car. Now, I'm sure a few of you are thinking, why didn't you take the Turbo S out? Well, a couple of reasons. One, I've driven Turbo S. It was a 997.1.5, so the nearly the same vintage, the next generation along. So I'd already kind of experienced that. And as I said, although I'm very tempted to take out that GT2 because they're such a rare car, I've got a fairly special video I've got planned with a GT2. And I thought actually there's quite a nice overlap with me having recently driven the GT3, and that's why I plumped for this one. I'm not disappointed at all. It's putting a big smile on my face. Finally, a nice bit of road and a gap in the traffic. Oh, the sun's bright today though. It's a real driver's car, this. A real driver's car, and I'm trying to be respectful and careful of it. I've not had a great deal of seat time in it. It's quite confidence inspiring. The gearbox is nice, the brake feel is nice, the steering is really sharp and communicative. All the things you would kind of expect from a GT3. And it sounds amazing. Well, that was good. I think we might go back and do that again. Yes. Yes, indeed. When I first started driving this car, I thought, does it feel underpowered by modern day standards? Then you suddenly realise actually power isn't everything. Driving feel is everything. A great gearbox, a great steering setup, a great ride quality. And those are all the things that you get in a Porsche GT product. I'm not so sure whether me personally I'd go back as far as a 996 911. I've always liked the 997. I think that generation it's just such a classic lines and classic looks. I'd be very, very tempted by a 997, or to go further back into the kind of 911s from the 70s, you know, with that big whale tail on the back, or a little duck spoiler. I think they're very cool as well. I can see myself slowly but surely going down a very dangerous wormhole, and that is 911 ownership. There's just something about them. I think, look at this, there's the practicality in the back to put the dogs in. They have this incredible driving feel. Every time I get in a 911, it just makes me realise how good a car they are. You know, when you've got a format of car like this that's been around for such a long time and has continued to be improved as generations go on, you kind of end up with a recipe for a car that's spot on. It's a supercar that you can live with every day. I think they look great. I love the rear aero kit on the back of this car. I think it looks really, really cool. But yeah, I can see a 911. I'd love to have a 911 in my life at some point. Which one and how old and when? I can't answer that question because I don't know. But the more 911s I drive, the more they kind of get under my skin. And I think that's a dangerous thing. Anyway, put in the comments below, of those 5 996s, which one would you have? Or which 911 would you have if I opened it up to any member of the 911 family? Which one would you plump for? And I'm going to head back to the showroom, grab another coffee, take another look at all of those cars in the same room at the same time. I'll put the details for Anthony James below. All the cars are for sale. You don't have to buy them as a collection. I'd be fascinated to know if somebody does though. It's quite a hefty investment if you add up the prices of all 5 cars, if you want to buy all 5. And it's, in some ways it's a shame if they're not bought as a collection, because the fact that they're to see them all in the same place at the same time is really, really special. And when I got the call, I was like, I've just got to come down. I just literally moved a few things around in my diary and came down. I don't have a great deal of time today, but I wanted to see all the cars together and I wanted to experience the GT3. So I hope you've enjoyed that one, guys. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. You take care. Drive safe.